Good morning, Brother Solin and Brother Israel.
Good morning, Brother Buckland.
Thank you for letting me and Brother Solin. We're going to begin right away by going to God in prayer. Father in heaven, we pray a blessing upon our classes. We pray that you may teach us, especially that which we are not familiar with or we do not know at all. Help us, dear Lord, to apply what we learn wherever applicable. And we ask that you will direct our class as we now begin. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, you both did a test last week, and you did very well. Did you receive the test results from me?
Yes, sir, we did.
Good. Do you have any query, any question about the test results?
No, sir, I do.
All right. We're going to go into the next lesson then, since there are no questions about the test that was given last week. We are continuing our look at section 3 in the syllabus in communication studies, which is entitled Developing Written Communication Skills. We have looked at report writing, and we have looked at types of business letters and business letter format or style. Last trimester, we looked at the topic sentence and also how to write a paragraph. So we're moving on now to lesson 6 in this section, entitled The Job Application Letter. In other words, how to write a letter to a particular business place or company requesting to be hired as a worker there. The general objective of this lesson is to examine the job application letter. The specific objectives are: 1, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to explain the difference between a job application letter and a resume. 2, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to explain how to decide what information to type in a job application letter. 3, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to identify 3 aspects of formatting a job application letter. 4, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to explain at least 5 sections of a job application letter. Okay, so we're looking now at how to decide what information to include in a job application letter. And we're also looking at 3 aspects of formatting a job application letter. Number 1, a job application letter, also known as a cover letter, should be sent or uploaded with your resume when applying for jobs. Now, I will be dealing with resume right after this lesson today. So we will look at what that is. While your resume offers a history of your work experience and an outline of your skills and accomplishments, the job application letter you send to an employer explains why you are qualified for the position and should be selected for an interview. So in this job application letter, you're going to focus on why you are qualified and should be selected for an interview with the hope that possibly you may be hired for that job. Number two, before you begin writing your job application letter, you'll need to know what the employer wants. The biggest clues are within the job advertisement. Match your qualifications with the employer's wants and needs. Make a list of your relevant experience and skills. Now let me illustrate. Let us say that Television Jamaica was advertising for someone to read the news. And they wanted someone who could speak clearly and who had a good knowledge of the English language. Or maybe I should just shift it to Haiti. Let us say that a company in Haiti wanted somebody to read the evening news, and they needed somebody who had good communication skills. They can speak clearly. They have a good understanding of the French language, and they are dedicated to their work. They are punctual. They come to work on time based on their past history. And you look at what the potential employer wants, and you see what you have as your qualifications and your skills that can supply what your employer is looking for. That is what your job letter is going to be centered or focused on. What you have, which your employer wants and needs. Now, how long should be this letter of application? Number three, this letter of application should be no more than 1 page long. Why? Because you can expect that the employer is going to be flooded with letters. There are many people who want jobs, who need an income. And so the company or the business is going to have many letters to look through and to analyze and to assess which one of these applicants are best suited for the job that I have advertised. If you make your letter long, then it is going to be difficult for the person who has been delegated to look through these application letters to really go through all of what you have written. And they might miss some of the more important experiences and skills and qualifications that you have. Perhaps they don't read everything in the letter, and they skip out the page that you have the information that they most want. So make sure that your application letter is no more than 1 page long. Don't be too long in what you write about your skills and experiences. Number 4, format and page margins. A letter of application should be single-spaced with a space between each paragraph. Use about 1-inch margins and align your text to the left, which is the standard alignment for most documents. Now, number 5, the font or the size of your letter and the style of the letter. Use a traditional font such as Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri. The font size should be between 10 and 12 points. Do you have any question on the screen?
No, sir.
Okay. Now let us look at, I'm going to be removing the floating controls so we can see everything here. We're looking at the 5 sections of a job application letter. Now, first of all, you have the heading. That is what is at the top of the letter. A letter of application for a job should begin with both your and the employer's contact information. So the first should be your contact information, your name, address, phone number, email, followed by the date. And then you have the employer's contact information, his name, the address of the business, the phone number of the business, the email. If this is an email rather than an actual letter, include your contact information at the end of the letter after your signature. So let me just repeat this for clarification's sake. If you're writing a letter by hand on paper, and you're going to be posting this at a post office, then the format should start with a heading. You should have your address at the top, your name and address, and other contact information such as your phone number and email, followed by the date. Then after that, you have the employer's contact information, which would include his or her name, the address of the business place, the phone number of the business place, and the email of the business place. Okay. However, if this is an email and not a letter that you're writing out with your hand and pen on a paper, if it is an email that you're typing on the laptop, rather than an actual letter, you won't have this as the first section of your application letter. What is in this section, you would put at the end of the letter after your signature. So you have your signature followed by the contact information, your name, address, phone number, email. Okay, so this would be at the bottom and not at the top in an email letter. The second section of a job application letter is your salutation or greeting. This is your polite greeting. The most common salutation is Dear Mr. or Dear Mrs. or Dear Miss, followed by the person's last name. Okay, so if you are applying to be a lecturer at the School of Preaching, you would write Dear Dr. Kidu, since he is the director. And you would put his last name. After you put his title, Doctor, you would put his last name, Kidu. Okay, so that is the idea here. Dear Mr. or Mrs. or Miss, followed by the person's last name or family name or surname. Salutation means greeting. The third section of a job application letter is the body of the letter. Think of this section as being three distinct parts. In the first paragraph, you will want to mention the job you are applying for and where you saw the job listing. That is where you saw the job advertised. Or perhaps where did you hear the advertisement? Or did you see it in the Jamaica Gleaner? Did you see it in the Jamaica Observer under classified advertisements? Did you hear it on RJR, that is Radio Jamaica? Did you hear it on TVJ, Television Jamaica? Where did you see this advertisement of the job? Now, this is important because the owner of the business wants to know um, which is the most advantageous place to advertise job openings for potential employees. And if he sees that many of the persons seeking to be employed in his company are coming from the advertisement given by Television Jamaica, then he will spend more money in the future advertising the job with Television Jamaica. If he sees that more people are looking at the Jamaica Gleaner, then he will spend more money later advertising in the Jamaica Gleaner. So he would like to see where you saw the job advertised. So the first paragraph is a mention of the job you are applying for and where you saw the job listed or advertised. The next paragraph or paragraphs are the most important part of your letter. Remember, before you put anything down on paper or type anything on the email, remember how you gathered all that information about what employers were seeking and how you could meet their needs. This is where you will share those relevant details on your experience and accomplishments. Okay, so think about what the employers want. Think about what you have that could satisfy what they want, and write down the information in the next paragraph or paragraphs. The third and last part of the body of the letter will be your thank you to the employer. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be considered as a potential employee at your company or business. So the body of the letter is the main part of the letter. It has three parts. The first paragraph, you mention the job you're applying for and where you saw the job listed or advertised. The next paragraphs or paragraph tells what the employer is looking for and how you can satisfy those needs that the employer has. And the third and last section of this main part of the letter is appreciating, giving thanks to the employer for giving you an opportunity to be considered for the job. Okay, I'm going to change this section. The fourth section of a job application letter is the complementary close, which is sign off your letter or email with a polite close such as best or sincerely, followed by your name. Then number 5, excuse me, is your signature. End with your signature, handwritten, followed by your typed name. If this is an email, simply include your typed name, followed by your contact information. So in the 5th section, you have your signature. If you're just writing a letter with your hand, then you put down your signature above your typed name. And if it's an email, you just have your typed name followed by your contact information, such as your address, your email address, your phone number, etc. Okay, do you have any questions over any of the 5 sections of a job application letter?
No, sir. It was all clear.
All right. Israel, do you have any question?
No, sir. You may go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to be going now to the next lesson. So I'm going to be sharing a new share now. Okay, we're now looking at lesson number 7, entitled Resume. Resume. The general objectives of this lesson are: 1, to examine the meaning of the resume. 2, to examine types of resumes. 3, to examine the format of the resume. The specific objectives are: 1, at the end of this lesson, the students will have defined the resume. 2, at the end of this lesson, the students will have described 3 types of resumes. 3, at the end of this lesson, the students will have outlined the format of the resume. Now, here is the definition of the resume, and also the definition of what is called curriculum vitae, or abbreviated as CV. C standing for curriculum, V standing for vitae. So we will look at the definition of both and see why one is different from the other. In popular usage in the English-speaking countries, many people do not put a distinction between, or make a distinction between, a resume and a CV, or curriculum vitae. But there is a difference. First of all, let us look at the meaning of the resume. A resume is a short document used to summarize a job seeker's experience and qualifications for a prospective employer. So it's a summary of your experience and qualifications, and it is handed in with your job application letter, which is also called a cover letter. It is not the same as a CV, that is curriculum vitae, which means course of life. A resume is relatively short, and it is meant to market your professional abilities, while a CV contains a thorough listing of your professional, academic, and other experiences. So a resume is not as long, and it is targeted for the job that you are applying for. But the CV is a complete listing of all of your professional, academic, and other experiences. Professional has to do with your past job experiences. Academic has to do with the training you have gotten at different institutions, educational institutions. And other experiences might be your hobbies, what you like to do in your spare time, which involves some skill that could be useful for the job that you are trying to be employed to. So they both overlap in meaning, since they're both dealing with your experiences and qualifications. But the CV, the curriculum vitae, has a complete list of your experiences. A resume is short, and it is targeting the job that you are hoping to get. Any question on the definition of the resume and also the definition of the curriculum vitae?
No, sir.
Israel?
You can go ahead, sir.
Let us now look at 3 types of resumes. Number 1 is called a chronological resume. Number 2 is called a functional resume. And number 3 is called a combination resume. Let us look at the first one, a chronological resume. It is a list of your work history, starting with your most recent experience, that is your most recent employment, and continuing to list jobs you have held in the past in reverse chronological order. That is, you're going back in time. Instead of starting with your first job and going on to your second job and third job, you start with your most recent job and go back in time to your first job. So it is a reverse. You're going backwards rather than forwards. In this type of resume, your work history is listed with either your current job or the most recent position you've held listed first. Hiring managers typically prefer chronological resumes over functional or combination resumes because it is easy for them to see what positions you have held and how long you held them. So you can keep that in mind. Hiring managers generally prefer the first type of resume, a chronological resume. Now, the second type of resume is a functional resume. It places an emphasis on your skills rather than on jobs you have held in the past. Functional resumes emphasize your abilities, such as managing, hiring, supervising, or coaching. Now, this can be helpful because the owner of the business may need a manager to manage his business or to manage her business. He or she may need somebody in the human resources department, which is in charge of hiring people that are qualified for different departments in the job. And if you have that skill of hiring, then you would have a plus, you would have an advantage over others who don't have that skill. It might be that you have the skill of a supervisor. That is also needed because in a business, especially large businesses, which have different departments, there will be a need for someone to supervise in each department. So that would come in handy or useful for the owner of the business. Or it might be that you have the skill of coaching. You have the skill of teaching and motivating people and showing people how things are done. That can also be handy in a business when you might be needed later on to be a coach for a new employee who is not familiar with the business. And so you will be there to use your skill of coaching to show them how to use different things that are in the company. For example, in a supermarket, you have the cashiers. So when you bring your groceries and the cashier is taking each item that is barcoded and putting it by the decoder, and it is being registered on the screen. She does not immediately do that work, even if she is being hired for that work. You have someone who has been a cashier for a while, who has her, it's usually a female, has her standing by her side and watching her as she cashes different customers and their groceries. So you may be needed to be a coach to show potential employees how to do things on the job. You might be in a hardware store, which have different tools, whether it is farming tools, whether it is doors, whether it's bathtubs, pipe fixtures, many different kinds of goods. And unless you're familiar with the names of these different goods and where you can locate them in the hardware place, you might have a difficulty being on the job in the hardware store. So you'll need a time for someone who knows the different names of these different tools or different products to show you what their name is, what they look like, where they're located in the store, so that when you begin to work at the hardware, you will know where to find the tool that the customer is asking you for. So if you have these abilities, these functional abilities, it will be an advantage to you if the owner is looking for any of these skills. Number 3, a combination resume contains details about your skills, along with a compressed reverse chronological job history. Compressed meaning that it is summarized. It is not long. A combination resume contains the most important elements of the chronological resume, as well as the best elements of the functional resume. In a combination resume, skill clusters containing your professional accomplishments are listed first, followed by a compressed work history section. Any question on the 3 types of resumes?
No, sir. You can move on.
Israel?
No, sir.
Okay, now let us look at the format of the resume. The first part is the contact information, which is your name, phone number, address, and email address. The second part or section of your resume deals with your work experience, the company that you were working with most recently or perhaps presently, where that company is located, your job title in the company, when you started working at the company, when you will end your work at the company, that is when your job will be terminated, so that you'll be free to begin your new job. And it begins with your current job, the job that you have right now, or your most recent job that you had in the past. And it goes back in time all the way to your first job. That's the work experience. Then the third section of the resume is your education. The name of the educational institution, the certificate, the degree that you have received, the location of the different schools that you have attended, that is the different educational institutions that you have been trained at, and the years that you have attended each institution. The fourth section of the resume is your skills, and you put the context or the situations in which you used your various skills, whether it is your skill of managing, your skill of hiring, your skill of supervising, your skill of coaching. You put the context, the situation in which you used your various or different skills. Number 5 is awards and honors. Did you get any special award and honor during the time you were working at this or that job? For example, were you ever Employee of the Month at a certain job? That is, you were outstanding. You were better than all the other employees for that particular month, that you were given a certificate, Employee of the Month, for example. So do you have any awards and honors? Then put that in that section. The sixth section is volunteer work and affiliations. Highlight skills used in volunteer work, which would be relevant for the job you are applying for. And what places did you volunteer work for? Did you volunteer to work at the YMCA, the Young Men's Christian Association? Did you volunteer to work at Television Jamaica or Radio Jamaica? Did you volunteer to work at a particular high school in teaching religious education or in offering counseling services? What work did you do? Okay, so these are the 6 sections of the resume: contact information, work experience, education, skills, context in which you used your various skills, awards and honors, volunteer work, and affiliations. Now, for further information on the resume, you can click on these different websites that I have here: Resume Writing Guide, Content Writing Center, or Resume Types Resume, and they will give you some more information. These were the sources of the information for this PowerPoint. Do you have any question on the format of the resume?
No, sir. They were clear enough, sir.
Israel?
I have a question, sir. For the format, it is like if it is divided by paragraph or just put the information that it needs, or put it in paragraphs. I need more explanation on that, on the format.
Okay. I don't think it is arranged by paragraphs. It's not like you're writing a letter. In the resume, unlike the job application letter, you're not putting information in paragraphs. I would say that it would be formatted just like you see here, that the first section that you have in your resume has your contact information. If you want to consider that a paragraph, well, that's okay. But the first section would be your contact information, how the owner of the business can contact you. Then number 2, you give your work experience. Number 3, you give the different institutions where you received your training and education. 4th section, you put down your skills. The 5th section, you put down the awards and honors you have received. And the 6th section, the final section, you put down any volunteer work that you have done and any association that you are connected with, and also any group that you have done volunteer work for. So it's like a listing. It's not really like a normal writing of a letter. So remember now, you have your job application letter and you just include the resume with it. The resume provides further details about what you have in your letter. So the resume itself is not a letter, but it is a listing of the detailed information that might be referred to briefly in your job application letter. So it is not paragraphs, it is just different sections. And this is just to outline where the different information for your resume will go. Do you have any further question on that, Brother Israel?
In my work experience, I just put where I can't see this. Okay, so I have to put where I want to have the job, or
Okay,
Yes, sir.
In the work experience, you will put down your most recent job or your current job that you are working at, and where that business is located, what is the address of that business, what title do you have in that job? Are you a supervisor? Are you a manager? What is the job you're doing? When did you begin that job? When did you end it? And you go back in time to your different jobs until you reach the very first job you ever had.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry. What I wanted to ask is that if it was for my first time to ask for a job, so do I have to put my work experiences?
Okay, it is the very first time that you are seeking a job and you don't have any past job experience. Well, if that is the case, you would skip work experience, since that would not apply to you. You wouldn't have any job experience to tell the owner. So my advice would be to skip number 2, since it would not be applicable to you. If it is the first job that you're seeking, then the work experience wouldn't apply, because it is referring to past work experience or to experience that you're having now on your present job. And if you have had no official job in the past, then you would have to skip number 2 and go on to education.
Okay. Okay, sir.
With a lot of people, that would be true. This might be their first job that they are applying for. Okay, so number 2 is only for people who have a present job and are looking for another job, or who have had past jobs and are looking for a new job. But in your case, the situation that you're talking about, this person has had no past job experiences, so number 2 will really not apply to that person.
And also for number 5, awards and honors.
Okay, that also will not apply, because this is talking about people with past job experiences and the awards and honors that they got during the time of their employment at this or that business place. So you'd only put down what is applicable to you. If you are personally writing or typing your resume, just put down what is applicable to you. So number 2 would not be applicable. Number 5 would not be applicable.
Okay, sir. All right. I think that's good.
Okay. Any questions on types of resumes? Chronological, functional, combination?
No, sir.
Israel, you're okay?
When you said the PowerPoint, sir, I read it further, sir, to explain better, to explain for myself better.
Okay, which one is it that you're talking about?
I said, sir, when you said the PowerPoint, I will read through them to have a better understanding.
Okay, that's understandable.
Yes, sir.
All right. What about the definition of the resume? Is it clear?
Yes, sir. It was clear, sir.
Israel, are you clear on it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I understand.
Okay. Are you familiar with the word resume in the French language?
Yes, sir.
I did not know the word resume, but I know for CV, the curriculum vitae.
All right.
Yeah,
Resume was borrowed from the French and used in the English language. So it's one of those words that was not originally English, that has been taken from the French language. Okay,
yes,
that's why it has the French pronunciation, resume.
Yes, sir. I did not know if there was a link between CV and resume, because I know resume, for example, you give me a text and you said to do the resume of this text. So I have to take some important part of the text. But a CV now is for a person who are asking for a job or for a position in any I can say school or any business. You understand?
Okay, so are you saying then that the word resume in French is referring to a summary?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, that is why the resume has to be short, and
Mhm.
it summarizes a job seeker's experience and qualifications. So you have shed some more light on the meaning of resume, since
Oh.
you are knowledgeable of the French language. Resume means summary, and resume is a summary of your experiences and qualifications. So it's
Oh.
applied in this special way. From its original meaning of summary, it is applied in this special way to mean a summary of your experience and qualifications in the hope that you will be employed in a particular business. So thank you for shedding light on the French word resume. Okay, now what you therefore have, let me just go to the original sharing that I had. Job application letter to see if you have any question. Okay, let me just move the floating panel here. Okay. So do you have any question about the difference between a job application letter and a resume?
No, what about?
Okay. Israel?
No, sir. I don't know.
Any questions about the 5 sections of a job application letter?
No, sir, it was clear.
Israel?
No, sir. I don't have any questions.
Okay. Now, God permitting, next week, I'm going to be testing you on lesson 6, the job application letter, and lesson 7, the resume. So for your homework, it's simply a matter of reading through and understanding what is in each lesson.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so your homework is to prepare for your test on lesson 6, the job application letter, and lesson 7, the resume. Okay, remember your PowerPoint presentation tomorrow in Beginner's Apologetics, entitled Personal Experiences of God in Everyday Life.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you
all
very
right,
much.
so I'll see you tomorrow, God permitting.
All right, great.
All right.